guys, Jerry Berg here, and I am so proud to tell you that I have finally completed my India Sword collection, and I am bringing to you the second episode of the Poor Historian's Guide to Swords India Sword Edition. So you were familiar with the cavalry style India Sword from my earlier video, but now I'm pleased to introduce the so-called horsehead style and the tulwar style. This, I am so glad. I was searching for these two styles all over the place. Goodwill, eBay, and lo and behold, they wound up on Craigslist right here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Shout out to the guy who was selling them, and actually his daughter, as I was buying them, she's peeking her head out the window and getting all excited. And I said, "Why was that?" And he's like, "She saw you on YouTube." So yay, thank you for making me feel famous. I'm so glad to have completed this collection. It's like bird watching or Pokemon catching. I caught Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Charmander all in the same go. So I'm proud to bring this to you. So let's jump right in. We are going to talk about the, as I called it, the horsehead style. You saw in my earlier little video, Cautionary Tales, that I actually got a smaller version of what was the horsehead sword, and if you look at it, it kind of looks like a horse head, but I'm not really sure. Whereas if you look at this one, this is clearly a lion's head sword, not a horse head sword. So, I wonder if that's a variant. I feel like I definitely have seen horse head styles, but this is clearly a lion's head, so we'll see. So let's go over some of it. I want to go over first impressions, go over some of the details of the sword itself, and then show how it could possibly be used, what its uses are, and then we can go over the grades. So let's start at first impressions. First impressions, I like this sword. It is a modern sword, I know it is, but they do have the nice, the nice coloring to it to make it look antique. When you see a sword that has the artificial aging on it, you can tell that it is meant to be a display piece. It's made to be hung on the wall so people think, oh, look at that antique sword, when in reality it was made in a factory, the patina of it. But they did do a good job of it. I mean, it does look old, and you do see these incorrectly being sold as antiques. Very cool. I like it. The head actually has some kind of intricacy to it, whether that's machine done or hand done, I'm not sure. But let's get into some of the specifics. So the scabbard is usually the first thing that we look at. And it is velvet. It's covered in velvet. Now, I'm not good enough with fabrics to tell whether this is a artificial velvet or a natural velvet. It is shiny. But it definitely is soft, and if you look at it, it actually has this very nice embroidery down the center on both sides, meaning that you could actually wear this sword on your left side or on your right side. Traditionally, you'd wear it on your left, so you'd reach across your body to draw it. If you remember, on the cavalry style India sword, they had a very similar bottom that I could just pull off. This one I can't. So the glue is definitely still good, but it is held on with glue. So take that as you will. It does have the center part. All of this does have a bronze looking patina to it. And this center part would have a chain connected up here to the top of the hilt, where you would somehow hang it on a belt. Most of the time you find those detached, whether they were intentionally taken off or fallen off due to poor quality, I'm not sure. So, but I do want to, and I'll see if I can get a good angle, but look at how thin the metal is on these. It's like that on the tip and at the top by the hilt here. It is thin, so you can tell that it is not made for heavy use, if you will. Like originals would likely have a much thicker, or at least stronger, where you couldn't bend it with your finger. Don't quote me on that. Because I don't have an original in a similar style to this to be able to press down on the metal. So let us jump to the hilt here. If you remember from the Cautionary Tales video, we had the tiny sword. I'd get it right now, but it's in my daughter's room and she's sleeping, so just go and look at the video. I can barely get my 3 fingers through the cross, or through the handle here. Well, similar situation here. If I try to put all 4 of my fingers here, they are very squished. Given I have huge hands, my fiance could hold this normally without any issue. But if I were to actually try to wield it, I would have to link my pinky on the outside here, which of course is not a very safe thing to do. So it is a little small. If we want to take a closer look at that lion's head, you can see that it does have some gold paint down on the inside, possibly trying to recreate the patina look, but it is a kind of paint or something inside each one of those engravings. There are some handmade, or at least parts that are made to look handmade, so if you look on the inside of the crossguard, you can see it's kind of weak and wobbly. And then also where it connects to the lion's head kind of looks a little weak, but in all honesty, it is a very solid hilt. And of course the knuckle guard, it's very solid, it's very thick. I don't know if I would be taking this one into combat myself, but it's thicker than you would expect for a poor quality mass-produced India Saber. What else do we have here on the hilt? Not too much, not that I wanted to go over, but there is of course the obvious, we've seen it before and we'll see it again, the obvious poor historian sword nut on the end there. We'll get into that in a second, but I do want to go over the blade. It's a very nice draw, by the way. Oh, there's a great example of how thin that metal can be. Also, if you look in there, you do see that it is a wood scabbard. So it at least retains its shape. So it's a wood scabbard covered with velvet, and then you can see the thinness of the metal. But the draw is very tight. When the sword is put into the scabbard, it doesn't shake around at all. You can hold it upside down, shake it, which is very good. So let's take a close look at the blade. Standard India sword style, I would very likely be able to detach this blade from this one and replace it with any of the other ones, because it has that similar style. This one did come with a lot of rust, and while the cavalry style saber and the Tulwar style saber are dulled blades, this one feels at least like it was attempted to be sharp. And if you look very close, and I doubt my camera would be able to pick that up, it looks like it was done really quickly by hand as opposed to with a very nice and fine machine. Small backsword, small false edge section, very nice curve. It is very solid. You know, I could shake this. You can see how thick it is. Definitely a backsword style because it's thicker, kind of making a triangular type cross section of the blade. And does have a fuller. But if you remember, I did mention earlier that I had an India sword at one point in my past that was chromed, and this one looks very much chromed. I am very worried about rubbing off some of this rust, because I might take some of the shine off with it, so I'm at an impasse there. Not like I would be really showing off the blade of this weapon too frequently anyway. But if you look closely, you can see that it does have that engraving along it, but then you get to the hilt here, and oh my gosh, what do you see in clear English? Made in India. So you can definitely tell that is the standard calling of the India Sabers. Somewhere down the blade it says made in India. So let's take this thing apart. Okay, you can see the very small nut. You can see the threading on the very end. So we take the hilt off, and this is very standard that you see of India Sabers. The rat tail tang, if you call it, is very poorly put together. You can kind of see how it's not perfectly straight, how it looks almost like it's been rapidly hammered into place because the tourist, or whoever would be buying this, is not actually going to be looking at that part. They're not going to be taking this sword apart. But once you do, you can see it's kind of ding 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 done, and then they added the threading just at the very tip of it. That's very standard, and that is honestly very weak. Though this sword does feel very stable, I don't know how long a rat tail tang like that would hold up. I'm not going to attempt to bend it because it may snap on me. Now, I don't feel like it would. It actually feels very stable and very solid, but I don't want to risk it. So let me put this back together, and then we can, so let me discuss how this sword could possibly be used in today's day and age. So we talked earlier in the last style, the cavalry style India Saber, on one of my earlier videos on how that was commonly used in Civil War reenacting as an officer's saber. This one would absolutely not do that. In fact, I doubt that there are any sabers made during the Civil War that have a velvet covering that weren't custom made. Same with the lion head guard up there, or grip. So how could you use this? Well, arguably you could use it if you were recreating a pirate impression, possibly an early explorer, possibly a Renaissance era Portuguese. However, that is very thinly spread if you were going to do that. In fact, I was curious about the exact. Usually poor swords like this are based on an original from a museum, and I tried to find these, and while I couldn't find one original that looked like these, I believe the cavalry style sword is an early 1800s British colonial model. For example, in the early 1800s, when Britain was, or when India was a colony of Great Britain. And so I assume that the same is for the same eras for the other two as well. There is actually a few museums in India that show similar swords, and maybe I'll post links or post words up on the video giving the details on that. So that would be for reenacting, and that would not be something I would recommend. If your hands can fit here, it is definitely solid enough to do some HEMA practices with the saber, with the Molyneux, which I am not learned in as of yet, but I do hope to sometime soon, because it is very curious. So it is solid enough to do that if your hands can fit. I don't know if I'm comfortable keeping my pinky out like that, and I wouldn't be doing any sparring with it. But maybe for some drills, it would be something useful for that. And of course, it is a very pretty looking sword, so anyone who is looking for a little bit of home decor, maybe something you'd take down off the wall to show your friends that you have a real sword, this would work because it does feel like a real sword. Someone would look at it, maybe someone who's not learned in the replica sword or swordsmanship world, and just go, wow, that's a real sword. This guy is at least more knowledgeable than I am in a collection. What I'm going to do with it, I have no idea. I might hang the 3 India swords together, and someone somewhere down the line will come into my house and go, oh, you have all 3? Cool! Yeah, that's high hopes right there. So check out the grades after this video. If you have a horse head sword or a lion's head sword or some variant on that, please post a picture of it, share your ideas or your thoughts on it, and I'd love to hear it. Other than that, check out the grades, and I will catch you guys later. Ooh, forgot about the value. So, I did forget to talk about the value. I did get this sword and the Toll War sword together for a total of $50, plus I had to drive to pick them up. But I think that $25 each, it definitely qualifies as a poor historian sword. So keep your eyes open. That's about how much you can get them for if you're really looking. Maybe 40 or 50 if you don't look too deep. Other than that, I'll have to catch you guys later.
قلت بديها بكري نسحب نانا